life.
Trying to sleep on us. All right, y'all. So this is going to be one of the first podcasts we've done in a minute. It's going to be the NFL draft recap. So as our post said earlier, we're going to be doing the AFC and NFC North tonight. And then hopefully each night this week, me and Courtney are going to be able to sit down and try to hammer out the rest of the conferences and divisions. And again, try to make this fun. Again, me and Courtney always bullshit around and have a good time. But then obviously we want you to be able to jump. We're broadcasting this through our group, but then Courtney's going to be sharing it on his page. So feel free to jump in and let's have fun with it.
And to spice it up a little bit, if you really feel like you got something that you need to say to us, don't hesitate because you might get brought into this. So the way we're going to do that is, Jordan, I don't know if you can upload it, but if you really feel like you got something that you need to say, you can have somebody join if you send them that link. So we can have more people in here. This is a new format, guys. So don't be surprised if we call on one of you guys. But I'll start it off, big dog. So we've been getting a lot of, I feel like for us, man, we've been getting a lot of kind of like people feeling hostile towards us because of our choices about whether Pittsburgh, like our polls and everything. People feel like we're Yinzers, right? People feel like we're just homers. And I feel like me and you, when we talked about this, we try to be as like, get a lot of kind of like unbiased as possible when we make this stuff. Like when I was choosing the best defenses, I put the 08 Steelers along with the 76 Steelers on there because they were great defenses. Not because I was just like, oh, let me pick a Steelers group. No, there's a reason why. I could have picked the freaking 2020 Steelers. Then I would have been, if I would have chosen the 2020 Steelers, then somebody would have been like, oh yeah, you're definitely a homer. But statistically, they were one of the greatest defenses ever. But that brings me to who won the NFL draft in my point. And we're covering the AFC North, the best division in football. And I think that's why, for me to start out, I have the Baltimore Ravens as the winners of the draft to me, second to Miami. So when you look at what Baltimore did, you can go in their offseason first. Like they lost Hayden Hurst, Warmley, and who else did they lose?
That's their two biggest losses, I guess.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst and Chris Warmley.
They lost Yonda too, I believe.
Yeah, well, he retired. If you include that, I have that on there too. But for me, for them to come back, and you look at, they picked up Calais Campbell, Michael Brockers to add to that defensive line. They got Justin Mbaktu, I think that's how he says his name, the D tackle. But I think where they got upgraded hugely was the linebacker position. They got Patrick Queen from LSU, and on top of that, they got Malik Harrison from Ohio State. And then you want to add, you got a Mark Ingram who's older. So then on the offensive side, they pick up J.K. Dobbins. And they got Devin DuVernay from Texas. Dude. Whew.
And if you think about it, the one guy that I think is going to really set their offense off this year, or not set it off, I should say, but going to be, I think, making a big impact is that Bronson Richstein that they picked up from Kenyon State?
Yeah, the guard?
No, he's a fullback.
Oh, yeah.
He's Rick Steiner's kid. And again, watching that highlight video of his as a fullback, again, he was in a wing tee style triple offense at Kennesaw State. But I really think with his size, he reminds me of an Owen Schmidt back from Dub V. So it's going to be real entertaining to watch him.
But yeah, so for me, man, that was right off the bat. And I think for me, because you kind of look at with, like, I was like, man, let's look at this draft. And when they got Patrick Queen, I was like, damn. I was like, okay. And then they go hammer, and then they get J.K. Dobbins, and I'm like, now to me, what's going to be interesting to see how they spread out the backfield because yeah, they got Mark Ingram who's older, but that doesn't mean he can't run the ball.
Nah,
They
he did
got
well last
J.K.
year.
They got J.K. Dobbins now, but I took a like looking at their roster depth. Here I pulled it up, but where's it at? There are my notes, but I can't. I didn't write the whole roster. So the roster right now at running back, they have J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Mark Ingram, Bronson Rick Steiner, Tyson Williams, and then Patrick Ricard at fullback. Like that's going to be a heavy weight on everybody, man. So
Yeah.
I think for sure Baltimore. I think they did a great job as they normally do at bringing more people, more pieces around Lamar Jackson. And then that defense with Wink Martindale, who I think Wink Martindale is probably the most underrated defensive coordinator in the game of football because nobody talks about him. When we talk about great assistants, great defenses, Wink Martindale's name, you never hear about it because he doesn't want that attention. He just wants to win football games and run great defenses. So big shout out to Baltimore, man.
Yeah, again, being a Steeler fan, like we've said, again, right now the Ravens scare the shit out of me
Yeah.
because they were already really good. They already added pieces back that they've again essentially lost, and already built on a good offense. Again, Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins is going to be real interesting to watch. Um, And again, it's just going to get that much better because again, they still have RG3, and they started using him as a running back too. So again, it's going to be real interesting how they finish it out. And again, that defense just got better with Queen, because they even had a. I mean, they had a good defense last year.
All right. So then, for me, who was your? Oh yeah, you can go ahead and.
So I was looking at Cincy again. I thought compared to the Ravens, they were like 1A or basically 2 in the draft weekend. So again, they didn't have very much to build off. Obviously, being the number one draft pick isn't always ideal, um, but obviously they got a huge piece, which we all knew was going to happen, unless something really crazy happened. But adding Joe Burrow, um, again, we'll see how that works out. Again, I have huge faith in him as a quarterback, um, but we'll see how him and Andy Dalton all work together. Uh, them adding T. Higgins into that wide receiving core is obviously huge. Logan Wilson was an interesting one.
The linebacker from
From
Minnesota. Oh,
no, he's from Wyoming.
Wyoming. Yeah.
So he's real interesting because he's athletic as hell.
Yep.
I mean, they showed him in high school, and he was a wide receiver and safety,
Yep.
converted into a linebacker to college.
Yep.
And I don't know what his grade out was from like Kuiper and the guys, but on film he looks fun. He looks fun to going to be watching. But then they also added Akeem Gaithers out of App State. And then a couple other pieces late. I didn't see who they got undrafted yet, but again, I thought they had a huge win just to set them up for future. Joe Burrow and Higgins is hopefully going to be a pairing that is going to be around for a minute. And we'll see how they develop. Again, that franchise is kind of bumpy right now, so we'll see how they're able to put those draft pieces together.
Yeah. Wilson was ranked 65th overall in a draft.
That's not bad.
Nope.
So then, who do you like for the Brownies? How do you
So
think they did that
I
past
thought
week?
the I thought the Browns, their draft was kind of like blah. It was kind of like, okay, they got Jedrick Wills from Alabama, so that was good. Then they followed it up with Grant Delpit, the safety. They got Jordan Elliott, the D tackle, Jacob Phillips, a linebacker, Harrison Bryant, a tight end. So I gave them a good rate. I think they had a good draft. It wasn't up there with the Miami, um, the Baltimores, but it was good enough. It was like a Pittsburgh Steelers draft. It was like very found, especially if you look at what they did as far as like the off season. Because you think about it, they picked up Jack Conklin, a tackle. They got Austin Hooper. They also picked up Sendejo from the Minnesota. So I think, and they also picked up Case Keenum. So I think when you mix those things together, along with what they did in the draft, they're loaded. Like they were already loaded with talent, but now like they even got Donovan Peoples Jones, who watching Michigan, me being a Michigan fan, I think Peoples Jones was one of the most underrated receivers because of his lack of quarterback play. Like you remember the receiver who Philly drafted, Rigger from TCU.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't talk about him because his quarterback play was so bad. That's the same thing at Michigan. Shea Patterson played so bad that it didn't make anybody else look good because how can you look good when your quarterback's garbage? So I think Cleveland had a good draft also. As far and I think what you're going to talk about to finish it out, the AFC North is going to be a powerhouse. Like as long if Joe Burrow and them can get it going and get it started and really show that they're serious about and see how Taylor the coach can bring them in and get those guys going. They have a couple problems on defense which I feel like they still should have got a safety. They still got a little things to work on. But the whole AFC North, man, they I think overall you got to give them an A minus at least for
Oh yeah.
how they drafted.
Again, I think Cleveland had a better free agent period than I guess you'll say a draft because I say the name recognition that they got in the free agency,
Right.
the pieces they also got in the draft, like you said, just adds to what they've already done last year's draft, last year's offseason, this free agency season. Um, it's going to be real nice to see how they're able to put everything together. Even though I want to obviously see the Steelers come out ahead. It's nice seeing that the AFC North is back to a competitive conference, not the old Steelers beating Ravens, Ravens Steelers, Cincinnati falling in there, and then the Browns just not doing well at all. I'd much rather see a competitive conference where it's almost like a NFC South a couple years ago, where
See,
there was three teams vying for a playoff spot.
and I think so somebody just said Baker Mayfield is a question mark, which is why they brought Case Keenum in because I feel like if Baker Mayfield doesn't play to the standard of the Cleveland's head coach, whatever his name is, then he has a guy in Case Keenum, who Case Keenum to me is kind of like a Tannehill, like that guy and Kirk Cousins, like those three guys have been put on like this pedestal, like they can't play football, and they just get rocked and they get criticized. But you put them in the right system, as in every quarterback. Like we're gonna talk about it in a little bit, man. But like for me, and we can transition to this. Like everybody, and you can talk about it last, but Green Bay. Everybody's talking about how Aaron Rodgers doesn't have these weapons, but what nobody's talking about is Devontae Adams is hurt. Devontae Adams was not there for 6 games or 4 to 6 games, and they still went 13-3. So it's like everybody's complaining about not having these weapons. You're still winning football games, which means you
Right.
still have talent around you. I don't ever understand that. Like, I don't understand why. But again, people make excuses for certain quarterbacks. Like Aaron Rodgers can get the excuse about no help, but let Big Ben or let somebody else talk about not getting help, then everybody wants to criticize. But I think it's definitely putting pressure on Baker Mayfield to see what he's going to do, man. So I think that wraps up the AFC North. Now it's time to go
Nah, I
to,
still got Pittsburgh.
oh shit, those guys.
Those guys, our guys. Again, me and Courtney built Loudmouth Sports Talk for obviously all fans. Again, a lot of our people in there are Steeler fans, but we try to spread the love. I understand sometimes people think that we're trying to, or not trying to be biased, but think that we're biased. It just so happens that we live in the city, and again, we'll post as much of our stuff as that we see. Just like, again, a lot of the times, most of my stuff's Oregon. But again, we have fandom for everybody. And again, that's what me and Courtney are trying to fight right now is the idea that we're just focusing on one team and one city.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, like when I be so serious when I try not to be, and it's a hard thing because it's like there's a lot of stuff that you want to sit there and say. Who wants to practice call for fire? You want to give some ad rags?
I'm assuming that's your people.
What do you mean, your people? Sorry.
The crayons. You're a mess.
Oh my goodness.
But I'll jump to Pittsburgh real quick. So obviously, the biggest gripe of a lot of people in Pittsburgh was J.K. Dobbins was still on board when they decided to go with Chase Claypool. I actually liked the pick. I actually rooted against him a lot since Notre Dame's one of the least favorite teams of mine in the NCAA. But, I mean, he was a beast. And, I mean, I think it was the Stanford game this past year. He basically took over the Stanford game. Alex Highsmith, again, I'm still pretty skeptic on. But I've been pretty skeptic of the last couple linebackers that they've chosen and they've turned out. We'll see because, again, even though they kind of rotate linebackers, Bud and TJ are going to be their main focus, especially with Bud being on essentially a contract year, just being on a franchise tag. Anthony McFarland's going to be fun. I'm assuming adding Matt Canada as our quarterback coach and, as I joked, the assistant offensive coordinator. I guarantee that was a pick of his. So that's going to put definitely Jalen Samuels and Kadarius White on notice because, again, that's the same style guy. And a lot of the scouts were raving about this kid's explosion and speed. So we'll see how that works out. Kevin Dotson as the offensive guard. They said he's kind of a work in progress. So I'll see how that works out. Again, DeCastro's not getting any younger. Again, the signing of Wisniewski, the Pittsburgh boy this offseason, he's not very young either. So adding that youth at the guard position. And again, Kevin's a big boy. So they even might look at swapping him out to tackle if that's a possibility. Anton Brooks, again, another Maryland kid. I guarantee Matt Canada had a hand in that. Even though there's still a couple safeties on board there, again, Matt Canada probably was in ears at that point. We'll see how that turns out because we do need safety depth. Again, they were talking about a big role change for Terrell Edmonds. So we'll see how adding Brooks into the mix turns out because most of our other safeties, at least as of right now, seemed like a lot of mainly special teams guys, not so much sub-package guys. And then Carlos Davis, he was actually a guy that I wanted. He's a big boy. He's more of a nose tackle than Wormley that we picked up from Baltimore. And unfortunately, David Colors, that we've had from Tennessee for a minute, really hasn't done anything in becoming the true number one. And obviously, losing Hargrave sucks. But he got subbed out of a lot of packages
I'm gonna call you back.
or moved around a lot. So we'll see how that works.
Love you.
Again, aw, that's cute. But again, overall, I think the Steelers, I guess, answered some of their questions. I wish they would have went after a tight end. Again, they had a Pittsburgh guy in the draft that went unsigned, and Nick Bowers. I wish they would have looked at him. Again, he's another guy that would have fit the role of how the tight ends are kind of moving right now in Pittsburgh. So again, there's some pieces that I think they still need, but again, their offensive or off-season pickups kind of help too.
Right. I mean, I was about to say, are we going to forget that we just got Ebron? I mean, we kind of.
I mean, Ebron definitely helps. Again, the hard part is stylistically, Ebron. I mean, Ebron isn't a blocking master. I mean, either is what's his face,
McDonald.
But
Gentry is.
But again, they don't put him in very much. I mean, they didn't use Gentry very much last year, and that's why Zach Banner was the third tight end.
Right. But also that offensive line, and I think Finkner's mindset was like, I don't have Big Ben. I don't know what to do. And I think that was pretty evident last year.
Oh, it was real evident. I mean, whenever you go three tight ends in a big back in the backfield, you're not throwing the ball. And I mean, even the games that they got cute and started throwing the ball very much, it's real hard to, as much as I like Zach Banner, you're not going to take him as a true threat out of the backfield. And unfortunately, the hell was his name? The other tight end that we picked up out of Seattle that's gone now. I mean, it's not like he did very much to really establish a pass game. And McDonald was in and out of the lineup pretty much all year.
Yeah, I just don't. There's not a whole lot of weight into the thought process last year. And yeah, Chris is right. Tomlin's son still is a freshman at Maryland.
Yeah, and again, a lot of people were joking about that too. Tomlin was probably down at those Maryland games a lot. Yeah. So again, he probably had those guys scouted out pretty good.
Right.
So
I think what's your grade on their draft? Because I think Pittsburgh had a very good draft. You have one problem with or second round pick, but I don't. Like, I feel like, yeah, he didn't play against big people, but I mean,
so again, all the analysts are giving them, I think, like an A. Overall, I think they lined up a bunch of depth.
Nick Vanett left, guys. If nobody knows, Nick Vanett left.
Yeah,
he didn't want to be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he talked a bunch of shit after he left.
Yeah,
which I thought was pretty funny.
Me too.
But again, I give him a good A. Again, Claypool, after thinking about it for a second, that was actually a very good pickup. Just because, again, and I don't know if I talked about it in the group. Right now, the Steelers' wide receiving core is a pretty big wide receiving core. Outside of Ryan Switzer, Quadre Henderson, and Deontay Johnson, everybody's 6'2", 210 plus. Being the biggest guy being Claypool.
Well, and I think I want to set this straight. The disrespect to Juju Smith-Schuster is pissing me off. They better put some damn respect on Juju Smith-Schuster. And another person we need to put respect on is fucking Mason Rudolph. Listen, our offensive line play last year was so fucking atrocious. George, it looked like never mind. I forgot. I gotta stop doing that. I ain't gonna mention their names. But their offensive line play was so bad. It was like Villanueva was getting his ass whooped all year long. It seemed like he didn't know what to do. He couldn't set his feet. He couldn't move his feet. He was like dead weight, which is why it's like people's like, oh well, we needed a running back. Did we really? Because we bring in Banner, we load the box. It's clearly a run play, so the defense loads 8-9 in the box and they stop it. So then people's like, wow, we need a running back. No, we don't. We had Benny Snell, who is very productive, and Finkner would take him out. So I think we need to really, 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 really understand that there's a difference between when Big Ben is our starting quarterback and Randy Finkner is actually calling plays like he knows how, which a lot of it is Ben. And there's a difference when Big Ben's gone and somebody like Randy Finkner doesn't know what to do.
No, I get again the hard part. Again, I will say Juju is looked at a lot harder because he's expected to take over. AB's leaving.
Right.
Again, I've said this multiple times in our group, and I don't know if anybody can tell me different. Juju's not a number one. Juju's probably not going to be a true number one.
Right.
I don't ever see him ever taking over a game.
As a number one, no, but I can see him taking over a game.
As a
Absolutely.
and honestly, like again, my biggest thing last year, and I was pretty boisterous about it, is offensive line play was trash.
Trash.
Offensive coordinator was trash.
Trash.
And again, a lot of people just see, oh, well, the Steelers almost made the playoffs. Well, they also could have made the playoffs if a better offensive coordinator was being used. I think a lot of guys were being misused. And again, you can blame it on trying to learn guys, but Deontay Johnson and James Washington weren't used properly until very late in the season. Juju was dinged, Connor was dinged, and again, you have backup quarterbacks. Again, we can look at the stats all we want about Rudolph. He was doing actually pretty well until he took that concussion. And even after a couple games after he came back, then Tomlin and Fichtner started getting cute and making him pass 40 times a game. Those two guys are never going to be able to pass 40 times a game and it be productive. Right when they started doing that, that's whenever Cleveland happened and everything else, and it all went to shit.
Absolutely. So
And the run game that they used during San Diego, I don't know what made them get rid of it, but they did, and that's when shit started really going awry.
Munchak leaving for Denver definitely hurt.
Oh, that was
Absolutely.
exactly. That was a
Absolutely.
huge thing.
Yeah.
Again, very rarely do you see a position coach leaving in that dramatic of a fall off from a
Now,
position.
you remember? So the Patriots offensive line coach retired and left for 2 years, and that was the year of who was the tackle that went to the Giants? Got paid Solder. It
Yeah,
was like his first couple of years, and he retired. They brought him out of retirement because that offensive line struggled. So I think it's just not talked about because the offensive line, who's the most important football position in football, they don't get enough respect. Shout out to the Hogs. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this
hey, a
next
bunch of hogs got broke off this offseason too.
right. And speaking of that, man, we're gonna move on to the NFC North, where it's cold. I'm gonna talk about Minnesota. Minnesota was like their draft grade was like a B, maybe C. Um, because so they picked up. Well, no, I'm gonna give them a B because they got rid of three cornerbacks last year. Like in this all season, they lost all three cornerbacks. Um, they lost Rhodes, Waynes, and Alexander. So their draft which they did a good job. They got Jeff Gladney from TCU, who's a baller. They got Cam Dantzler, Dantzler, yeah, I think that's his name, and they got Harrison Hand to go along with Josh Metellus from Michigan. So I think they did a good job of filling their roles. And then you look at what they did on offense. They got Ezra Cleveland, who I know you were big on him. He went really late.
Mhm.
Ezra Cleveland from Boise State. Then they got Justin Jefferson, who, to me, when I seen it, I was like, oh, that's Stephon Diggs. Like, he's going to fill that role to kind of be like a Batman to Adam Thielen's Robin. You know, like, because I think Stephon Diggs is a number one guy. Like, that guy has enough baller in him to be a number one guy. You know, so it became kind of like, oh, I'm not getting the ball. And then Thielen, like, I'm not getting the ball. Compared to Jefferson, Jefferson just came from a place where they had three other wide receivers that could have been number ones. You know, like, and I think he did a good job. And you see the humility of what Jefferson was able to do. So I think when they brought him in, that meant a lot. The still of the draft, mark my words, George, Troy Dye dropped all the way down, and Minnesota was able to get him.
That's my dude.
Holy sugar. For him to drop all the way down, Pittsburgh, I was hoping and praying that Pittsburgh would pick him up,
I
which
was
I'm not
hoping
mad at
too.
Pittsburgh, and I understand. But this dude is a baller. If you look at Oregon's defense was fast. They were physical. The thing you see about Troy Dye, which it's kind of like a Ohio. If you remember Shazier had a lot of speed. He had a lot that he can be able to do, but he couldn't tackle. Troy Dye is somebody who he's not known for missing tackles. He's not he's going to hit you and you're going to drop. And then you mix him with Anthony Barr, Kendrick. They got some versatile safeties up
Oh
there.
yeah.
Like they got some versatile linebacker core. I would love to be in that room. So I think Minnesota, they had to still let it draft one of them. And I think in their offseason pickup, they did pick up Sharp from Tennessee. So I'll give them a good B, solid B for what they did in the draft, man. That was my mic drop.
So obviously, I'm going to move over to, I'll say, one of the more issued teams this offseason with the Lions and Matt Patricia.
Who?
Exactly. So obviously, everybody thought Patricia was going to be kind of not the next Belichick, but they were hoping that he was going to be one of the other disciples that, again, leaves the nest and does at least decently well. Not that the Lions they've sucked. They were 3-12 last year with one tie. And again, not only have they had a bunch of issues with people saying, or Patricia saying, again, leaks of him saying certain things about players, but then players leaving the team, I guess, with like a bitter taste in their mouth, which obviously
Saying this isn't New England.
saying this isn't New England, but then saying he's a Jagoff.
I
Um,
think they had a good draft though, in my opinion.
I think they had to be honest.
Right.
So again, they got Akuda from Ohio State, which again everybody was real high on. So hopefully, with the amount of DBs that they lost, he can come in. The pickup of DeAndre Swift was ideal because the hell's their running back now? Oh, damn it, Kenyon Johnson. No, damn, what the hell's his name?
I got you.
Yeah.
Let me look it up. See, that's why I study notes. I'm prepared. I don't blame you though. I blame your parents. Kerryon Johnson.
Kerryon Johnson. I was close. So that, again, the league is really going to a backfield by committee again. Not so much of having just that one running back that carries 90% of the load and then the other guy getting the rest. Again, a lot of these teams they either have a bruiser and a scat back, or they have, again, kind of like the Lions are going to have, that they're both really quick, but they can hold a decent bit of the workload, and you don't really have to put them on a pitch count. They added some line depth out of Ohio State and Kentucky, which, again, never hurts. They added, again, just a couple more pieces. With their offseason and then their draft, I don't know. I forget what the actual analyst graded them out as. But, I mean, I'll give them a solid B, maybe an A, with, again, adding a nice running back to hopefully help a healthy Matt Stafford. And then just being able to add that depth on the D, just to overall help things out.
Quarterback.
I forget who, but I think they picked somebody up after the fact at quarterback to help out Matt Stafford. I got to look that up and and I'll post it.
Oh, was it your guy from Washington? I mean,
No, Colts got Eason.
no, it was the other guy from
Oh, Wazoo.
Yeah.
Gordon. I would actually no. That makes sense. That sounds right.
Let's see. I don't know. They didn't. Their football page didn't add who they picked up. I mean, who they signed. But I thought they finally, for me, Detroit kind of had a boring draft, but that's only because they didn't pick up anybody. Well, I mean, they picked up people for the offensive line finally, and I think it's just you when you always have to question a health of a quarterback. I think that's crucial for who you need to pick up in your like who you need to pick up in your group.
Yeah. I mean, that was, again, we'll get to it whenever we get to the Patriots. But, I mean, that's the same line with the Patriots. I mean, they picked up their pieces that they wanted, but
Right.
overall they had a pretty boring draft.
Right. It's okay to be boring sometimes in life, folks. We got to remember that. My girlfriend tells me all the time. She's like, "You're a boring person," and I was like, "So why are you with me?" And she's like, "Well, because I'm boring too." It's so cute. It's like paid in full. Like I ain't with you for the money. I'm with you because
You're a
I'm
mess.
boring too.
So what did the Bears do?
Huh?
What did the Bears do? How did they do?
Shit the bed. That's what the Bears did. The Bears were like Goldilocks. They didn't do a damn thing. It's like the only thing they did interesting was get Cole Clement from Notre Dame. Other than that, man, like their off season, I mean, they picked up a couple people. They picked up Robert Quinn, Jimmy Graham, Effetti from Seattle, Mingo. But other than that, man, like they didn't. It was like kind of blah. It was kind of like their draft was like horrible. Like they got Jalen Johnson question mark, Gibson question mark, Volter question mark. Like I can't even get these guys. Like I can't even really get anything on those guys. Like they kind of just. But also to their credit, and this is the point, the Bears are not far away from winning, and I think people need to understand that. The Bears' problem is the play of their quarterback, which is why they bring in Nick Foles. When Nick Foles comes into town, it brings pressure to people. Like they either look good, and now what's going to be interesting is because they have until May 4th to make a decision on what's his
On
name?
his 5th year?
On his 5th-year option, whether they're going to pick it up or not.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they get after it and whether they trust him or not. Because it's clear their defense, they dropped Vangio, and then they got um Chuck Pagano, and that defense played, to me, the defense played better in year 2 with Nagy than they did before. Chuck
What's real
Pagano,
funny is the Bears started off the season wowing everybody, and everybody thought that they were going to be like the next contenders. And
yeah,
then after like the third week, they fell off.
yep, yep, and I think
Again, the Bears are, again, like you said, they're like the Bears are like that far, and again, they don't have really a wide receiver threat.
no, they do. They got Allen Robinson. He's a very good. Like
They,
he's
they
like
just
a
cut
Michael
him.
Thomas. He doesn't. He's not fast. He's not going to blow you away. But the guy had over 100 catches, over 1,000 yards. Like it's not just like he's just a scrub guy. Their problem was they had Trey Burton had a lot invested, and Burton was hurt all year long. So now they get a guy like Jimmy Graham, and you know they love tight ends and that Matt Nagy, Andy Reid system. Now it's going to be interesting to see what they can do with this tight end and see if they can kind of get it going for those guys, because I think they got a lot of discredit. They were hurt on the offensive line, but they got a good running back. They got pieces, man. It's like, come on, put that shit together, guys. Like I think this year of football is going to be the like come big, come with a come with a plan and be ready to go. Like every
Oh, they have
team,
Cordell Patterson too. I forgot about him.
yeah, but like every team to me, and we just went over the AFC North. On paper, every team can compete. People might say Pittsburgh is the worst team on paper, honestly. But do you really think Pittsburgh's mentality is to be the worst? Hell to the no. Like Minnesota. Minnesota may not have those pieces that wow you, but they're going to be coached and they're going to be good defensively and they're going to be like they're going to play. Same with the team you're about to talk about. I'm so tired of hearing these complaints about how Aaron Rodgers doesn't have this, how he doesn't have that. Dog, you just won 13 games because you didn't even play good. And that's what people ain't going to talk about. He did not play good. He played subpar at best. And they went 13-3 because they have said it. We don't need you. Like, you are not the focal point. You don't want to be a leader. You have question marks about your, like, how you feel about the organization. Cool, we're going to draft somebody who has a ceiling that is unmatchable. Jordan Love's ceiling is ridiculous. But I'm going to go ahead and let you start before I steal your thunder. So go ahead and talk about the last team, man. I'm sorry. I get
So,
hyped up.
so we'll talk about what Green Bay did in the draft. Again, I thought it was a goofy draft compared to anything else. Again, there's been articles back and forth with, again, people saying out of the locker room that they don't like Aaron Rodgers, but again, he still wins. Again, they did go 13-3, and this is one of the first teams that I've ever heard them say we don't need you as a quarterback while they're winning.
Are you sure? Because you know it's funny. The only person to do that before is the same team. But I ain't gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna mention it.
Yeah, I mean, well, with Favre, yeah, and that's why Favre came back to play with the Vikings.
Yep.
But again, they did get Jordan Love. Again, like you said, his ceiling is real high. Again, he was sort of under the radar for the most part of the week, or again, leading up to the draft. He only started getting on people's boards late. So I didn't see any comparables for him. But again, watching him on tape, again, he does have a nice ball. So we'll see how that works. Again, foreseeably, I don't see them moving Aaron Rodgers unless somebody comes to the table with a crazy trade, because you're not going to trade away a top 5 quarterback if you don't have to.
I mean, you see people trade number 1 wide receivers.
Yeah, wide receivers are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Again, there's a good reason why quarterbacks are making $40 million a year, and running backs and wide receivers or especially wide receivers are only breaking into just 20 now. But again, they got Jordan Love. They got A.J. Dillon, which I thought was a nice pickup. He was a later round guy that I thought that could have turned out is going to turn out to be nice, especially with them having Aaron Jones now. A.J. Dillon's going to be a nice 1-2 punch again. Talking about the backfield by committee, they added a tight end, which I feel like the Bears and Green Bay are like the only teams in the National Football League that have like 76 tight ends and nothing to really say about it. Let me see. They got the one inside linebacker, Kamal Martin from Minnesota. That was real nice. They picked up John Runyon out of Michigan, which he was kind of on my board for a want out of a guard.
He's a bruiser.
Yeah. They also got Jake Hansen out of Oregon, which was another guy that I had on my list, mainly because Jake Hansen's a academic All-American also at Oregon, and he's I think a 2-year starter. And again, not that Oregon's offense is overly complicated, but at the line, a lot of their stuff goes off of what Hansen says. So he has to know what everybody's doing. And again, they just got some other pieces later in the draft. Again, I still knock what they did because, again, they didn't really get any help for Aaron Rodgers or, again, Jordan Love. Again, as we all know as athletes, you're one play away from being a starter. Rudolph and Duck, unfortunately, found that out this year on top of Fitzpatrick and a bunch of other guys. But right now, I mean, outside of Devontae Adams, I mean, Devin Funches is like the next name that I notice on their draft or their depth chart right now as like an actual weapon. So again, I got to give them a C because again, they did get a potential future franchise quarterback for themselves. Because again, this is basically the same timetable that they used for, again, Aaron Rodgers and Favre. So we'll see how that works. Again, there's been mixed reports coming out already saying that if Aaron Rodgers is actually going to be a mentor or not, which, again, the last couple of years that guys have had guys drafted higher in their franchise that I'll say are franchise guys have pissed on the idea of being a mentor, notably being Ben. So, again, the hard part is I understand where they're coming from. The whole idea of training your competition and the guy that's going to take your money. But at the same time, it is bigger than you. And the idea of bettering your legacy and what you leave behind.
So what do you think the NFC North draft was? Because we're giving the AFC an A, right? Like AFC had a very good division draft. The NFC North, maybe a C.
High C, low B. Just because there wasn't any wow.
Yeah.
Again, for the most part, they probably in the or not in the locker room, but like in the offices later, they're probably going to look at it as they filled some positions. It wasn't wowing, and it wasn't really like they answered big questions.
Right.
Because there was still a lot of holes, in my opinion, on a lot of those rosters in the NFC North than the AFC North coming out of this.
All right, man. Great breakdown. That was very, very solid for you. we doing this again tomorrow? Who are we previewing tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to try to do this again tomorrow. We'll start breaking down the AFC North and South, or AFC NFC South. So those should be some more fun teams to break down. Again, we'll be able to talk about the Saints in their wild offseason.
The Buccaneers in their
Buccaneers wild offseason.
The Carolina Panthers draft, who I'm giving them an A+.
I haven't seen theirs, but they're
shout out to Kenny Robinson, man. Woo!
Just for Kenny.
They had the steal of the draft. The Carolina Panthers stole Kenny Robinson. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that he wasn't regarded higher.
Right.
Considering he had the XFL was around 6 games.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And he already essentially had pro experience.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 games of pro film.
Yep. And if you look at what he did at West Virginia, he was the best safety in football.
Yeah. So again, I don't know why.
Man. Shout out to Matt Rule. Keep pounding. We gonna keep it rocking. Let's go.
You're a mess. Hey, before we sign off, I put it in the group. If NFL Office dragged you in right now and said, what are the changes to the Pro Bowl you'd make, what is it?
Damn, you didn't even prepare me for this question.
Nah,
I like it.
Put you on spot.
All right, so the changes I would make to the Pro Bowl, I would make it, I would move it to at the end of the season. That's one. After the Super Bowl, meaning, right? So, like, I don't like how guys who make the Pro Bowl, but they make the Super Bowl, they don't make it to the Pro Bowl anyway. So then you got Schmuckatelli getting a Pro Bowl offer who shouldn't even fucking be there. Like, no. So that's one change I would definitely make. The other change I would make is I would bring back physicality. Like, you remember when Sean Taylor knocked the punter off his shit? That's what I would bring back because we need more physicality. We need blitzes. We need fuck somebody up. That's why you have it at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, so like my biggest thing whenever I posed it, and I don't know if I got a chance to post it in there or not. So again, my biggest thing is, it has to be after the Super Bowl. Again, I understand that they don't want that like lull in between the Super Bowl and the last game of the playoffs, but I don't care. The most fun was the Steelers won it in 2005, right? 2006.
Yeah.
That Pro Bowl might have been my last favorite Pro Bowl, obviously because the Steelers won the Super Bowl. But then all the Pro Bowl guys that got to play in the Pro Bowl and won the Super Bowl all walked out as one team, and they got announced as the world champion, Super Bowl champs.
Right.
And that was the coolest thing ever because I think that year it was Polamalu, Ferrier, James Harrison, Ben. Again, it was just fun. Especially for a Steelers fan, being able to see them come out together. That was
What's up, big dog?
Who's that?
Well, time you joined the show.
Who's that?
Big Dave.
Oh, nice. The only other thing that I would change is you'd have to like really sit down and look at it. But being able to see how you can make it a tournament style like the NHL. I understand the gameplay is not the same, so it's real hard to do a round robin and get that to happen. But I think it would be really cool to see like the all-stars out of the AFC and NFC North make a squad, the East, West, South make a squad.
Like a 7-on-7.
7-on-7 leaves out the big guys. That's the only hard part.
We can do big man challenge, one-on-ones, when we already know what's up.
That actually pro style one-on-ones
would get
with like Aaron Donald and
versus
like
Taylor
whoever.
Lewan. Aaron Donald versus Taylor Lewan. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Bruh.
That would be fun.
That would be fun.
We were joking around in the troop chat. If you had like 7-on-7s with like the normal guys, and then a fat man 7-on-7 with all the hogs. The only hard part is it's not like real fat man 7-on-7 because, again, as we're seeing now, like the guy from Louisville that just got drafted, my man's 313 pounds, or no, 360, and running a sub 540. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, man, I like it. We kept it under an hour, even with the technical difficulties. Hey, we're trying to make this right. Somebody say Quentin Nelson versus Aaron Donald 1-on-ones. That would be fun.
Bruh, listen. Woo! Quentin Nelson versus, or what about this? Zach Martin versus Ndamukong Suh.
That would be fun.
You couldn't.
But hey, brother.
Like, just think about Lane Johnson versus J.J. Watt 1-on-1.
Yeah.
Let's just keep this. No, let's keep this going for a little bit. Let's think of a couple, because you got me thinking. You got my mind tripping. You got me tripping.
I'm trying to think, like, even not just straight like all-star or all-stars, but like Danny Shelton versus like a Pouncey or something like that. Like,
right.
That would be fun.
Like, I would like to
like
see Travis Frederick versus Akeem Hicks from the
yeah.
Bears. You could bring David on if he has the app.
Yeah.
Man, that would be nasty.
Yeah. The other one would be fun. Would be like a Coughlin versus Khalil Mack, and like again, like everybody knows it's past. So good luck. Buckle up. We're about to have fun.
Yeah. Like watching Bakhtiari versus TJ Watt.
Yeah.
Somebody getting their lunch money taken. Somebody getting their lunch money taken. Feelings will be hurt if they did that. Because I think what it is for the All-Star game is for people to bring physicality. Like, it's too fun. It's like you are...
I didn't realize they was able to do that.
You're an idiot. The old school, though. Think old school, though. Like Bruce Matthews versus Bruce Smith. Think about Lawrence Taylor versus, like, Joe Thomas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like in Orlando Pace, like even doing crossover, like Orlando Pace versus like a JJ.
Ooh, ooh, JJ taking lunch money. They gonna bring back slavery. Sorry, I'm just.
Sure, mess. But hey, brother, we'll talk to you later. Everybody, thank you for showing up. Thank you for getting involved. Again, big shout out. I think we're at like 1,200 people right now. Big shout out for adding to the page. Keep adding to the page. Add everybody that you can. We're trying to, again, have fun with this, make this big. It seems like everybody's having fun with it. I'm hoping this really pops off once we actually have sports back.
I got Dave too excited. He gonna be just commenting stuff for Nate Newton versus fucking anyone.
Hey, Reggie White versus Orlando Pace would be fire too.
Man.
But all right, brother.
All right, I'm gonna call you as soon as this is over.
I bet.
All right.